All right. Hello, Precious. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, to start things off, tell me your name, your company, and your position there.
Yeah, so my name is Precious Brown. My company is Entertaining and Elevating with Cannabis, and I'm the CEO and half founder of the business.
And what brought you to starting entertaining and elevating with cannabis?
That's a great question, Jessica. So essentially, I'm 41 years old. I have been entertaining and elevating with cannabis for well over, I would say 20 plus years, right? And so essentially, I used to entertain and elevate with cannabis, I would say only with my family. Then things extended over to my friends. Due to the prohibition of cannabis, and recognizing that it's so important to create vital communities where the harms of cannabis is really rectified. I started to, once things became legalized, I was like, you know what, it's so important to showcase not only to my family and my friends, but to the cannabis community what we can do here. So entertaining and elevating with cannabis is essentially a lodging and hosting business. And we're going to be a premier bed and breakfast within upstate New York. And then we'll have a second location down in Mount Airy, Pennsylvania. So we really wanted to make sure that we are creating an environment that's all inclusive, and that everyone is able to partake in.
I love that. I love that
Thank
you
you.
are looking towards like the elevating of cannabis, the experiences that you can have with it, the things that you can craft, just like you can craft experiences around wine and beer.
Absolutely. And really our slogan and our brand is to really reimagine the consumption of cannabis one experience at a time.
Oh, I like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell me about your personal journey with cannabis.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that question for the last couple weeks or so. I was like, wow, when did my personal experience start with cannabis? So in complete transparency, my mother and my father, they always smoked cigarettes, specifically Newport 100s. And I'm an Army brat. We moved back from overseas in 1992. And I remember a situation with my mother and her sisters. And so in the early 80s and in the late 80s and 90s, you were always able to be around adults when they were smoking cigarettes. But this specific time, my mother and her sisters, they were together, and this didn't smell like cigarettes. They were rolling it up, and I remember cigarettes you purchased at the store. And so that was my first, I would say, introductory into there's something different about what's happening here. Then I noticed afterwards, my mother and her siblings, they were very relaxed and giddy and things of such. So again, that was maybe about 12 years old. Fast forward to my late teens. My first time experienced cannabis was, I would say, about 1920. And at that time, I consumed because of just wanting to relax, wanting to kind of fit in with the crowd and see what everyone else was doing. So my journey with cannabis started out that way, but then it ultimately transitioned to having a grand respect for the plant and understanding that it's just like the blades of grass that we see out there. There's hundreds of thousands of strands, especially considering that people are continuously cultivating, and there's so many different hybrids. And so it started out with a understanding and an introductory that way, and now it really has evolved into infusions and really wanting to create a safe space for my cannabis community, and really wanting to break down the walls of stigmatism that professional people are lazy and things of such. So that's kind of what the introductory to cannabis was.
Gotcha.
My journey.
Gotcha. And do you have a background in hospitality or entertainment? What is your professional background like that's led you here?
Yeah, so my professional background really is all in business management. So it started in upstate New York in Rochester. I worked for quite a few businesses. I worked for Xerox. I worked for Paychecks. Within those settings, I was a trainer. Then I transitioned over to a continuing education trainer, and then also a work from home manager, and then essentially an operations manager. So really helping to build up those specific businesses, and being responsible and in charge and having to deal with the operations, the day-to-day operations of those businesses is what really got me to wanting to make sure that I'm, being inclusive in providing a safe space for cannabis users.
You really have a background in just running the show.
I do. Not to mention that I'm a momager. I have 3 children and I'm
Okay.
consistently running their lives as well. So yes, yes, yes.
Managing all those details is nothing new.
Nothing new, nothing new. And honestly, really loving it. If I'm transparent with you, Jessica, in those realms, not to say that I didn't appreciate having those opportunities, but, I was managing attrition and managing people that did not love their job. And where now in dealing with cannabis, I have the opportunity to talk to people such as yourself and people who really love what they do. So in all honesty, it is a night and day experience for me. And people who knew me in that professional realm, when they see me now, they're like, wow, you're so different. I am different. I explain that to them all the time. I really love what I do. And I really look forward to, like I said, just having the radical, transparent conversation, breaking down that stigmatism, that professionals, we can't elevate and still get things done.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes such a difference when you love what you do and you get to talk to people who love what they do.
That is the truth.
So you are based in New York, like me. What is something that you see in the cannabis industry that's really exciting to you right now?
Yeah, so I would say there's actually 2 things. So the first thing
Okay.
is I have to shout out the CCRA, and I jotted a few notes down on it because I'm not specifically all the way sure. So you're going to see me kind of veer from it.
Okay.
But the CCRA is the Cannabis Community Reinvestment Act. And essentially what it's going to do is it's going to ensure that corporations, whether they're large or small, that at least 2% of their I would say 2% of their shares or 2% of their profits is reinvested back into the communities that they're dealing with. And again, that it makes it so that it's an equitable environment. It makes it so that everyone in the community specifically is able to benefit from the legalization of cannabis. So I am really excited about that. That was a bill that's recently introduced by James Saunders Jr. and through the National Cannabis Party. So I'm extremely excited about that. Again, I don't know all the specifics of it, but when I saw a reel about it the other day through the National Cannabis Party, as I said, I was extremely excited about it. We're going to find out a little bit more about it. The other one is that on June 23rd, 24th, and 25th, myself, my business partner, Brandy Hester Harrell, as well as Rock Normal Mary, we are hosting a cannabis community and equity celebration for the city. We're so excited. Really, we're really trying to synergize the cannabis community. We're going to talk about acknowledging the past, celebrating the present, and planning for our future. Acknowledging the past, having to deal with the fact that the prohibition of cannabis has really ruined so many people's lives. Now that it is legalized in a recreational use, a recreational way, how can the community benefit from that? What workforce development is going to be available for that? So we're going to have a conversation about that on June 23rd. We are going to include the church. And so I'm extremely excited about that. So it's going to be cannabis community in the church. And then on the 24th, we're going to have a private dinner curated by my company, Entertaining and Elevating with Cannabis. We hope to see you there, Jessica.
I hope to be there.
Yeah, and then on the 25th, we're having a business incubator, and that's really for the public and for aspiring cannabis businesses and up and coming businesses. We're going to work with different industry leaders to help to bring in brand development and really things that's going to help to the trajectory of a potential cannabis business. So we're excited about that. We're in the works of what that looks like now.
Gotcha. So you touched on there, one of your talks is about cannabis community and the church, and I haven't heard anybody talking about bringing the church into these discussions yet. So what was the catalyst for that?
Yeah, so I just feel like, so when I was thinking about, how can we really give back to the community and how can my brand, Entertaining and Elevating with Cannabis, be a bridge, right? Because if I'm honest with you, I noticed that Rochester as a whole is divided. Monroe County is divided, AKA segregated, right? And so what I wanted to do, and I noticed, I also have an understanding that the church is divided as well when it comes to cannabis. The opportunities that are coming soon to the area, I feel that conversation, if it's coming from your pastor, if it's coming from your aunt or your uncle, and you know that they attend church on a regular basis, but I'm not talking about consuming, because that's not the conversation that I'm going to have with the church, right? It's more so about acknowledging the past, the fact that, again, the prohibition of cannabis has ruined so many lives, and the fact that now it's legalized in a recreational way. How can we be a tool? How can we be a resource to each other to bridge the gap, to help people who have been directly affected by this? And so that's what I want to do. I want to talk about the workforce, that development that's going to be coming into town. And I feel that the church could be the catalyst to have that conversation directly with not only their members, but their children, their cousins, your aunts, your uncles. It's a different conversation when it comes from the people that you trust.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a lot of neighborhoods and a lot of communities, a church is a staple institution. So if you can have somebody from that kind of platform saying, hey, you don't have to smoke weed, but you don't have to hate it either. There's opportunity
Absolutely,
here.
absolutely. And there's different ways to be able to be a part of the cannabis community and the workforce development that could essentially change the trajectory of someone's life.
Yep, absolutely. I hear that a lot when we talk about cannabis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on the opposite end of the spectrum, what is something you see in the industry right now that you think needs to end?
Yeah, just kind of what I talked about right here. I see that as an African American woman, as a Black woman. So we live in, we live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as well as within Rochester. And so how I came about with the cannabis community and celebration is that I would come up and I would see in certain events, Black and brown people weren't at certain events, and in white spaces. And then in Black spaces, I also did not see white people. Again, I want to be the person, and I want to have the brand that bridges that gap, right? That bridges that gap. Cannabis is the flower that brings us all together. It is the flower that brings us all together, and we cannot let it divide us. So one thing that I see is that it's starting to create a division. And that's, I'm an all-inclusive person, and my brand is an all-inclusive brand. So I want to make sure that the division is not there, so that the synergy of everyone working together is better for everyone. So that's really what that I see that's happening, that I'm trying so hard to, and that's why we're creating this cannabis community celebration with the city, and really trying to, again, the synergy of everyone, bringing everyone together.
Gotcha. That's a perfect segue into my next question, which is about inclusion. So what do you do in your organization to create these inclusive spaces for everybody?
Yeah, so such things as what we're doing right now, Jessica, just having the conversation. As soon as I met, I feel like we've met in person twice at two events, right?
Yep.
And just really wanting to work with the cannabis community, and honestly, women brands as well, women within cannabis, and then also the Black community. So once our location, our bud and breakfast, is up and running within upstate New York, we are going to be very strategic, and I want to be radically transparent about that. We are going to be very strategic in making sure that we work with the disenfranchised community that has been disproportionately policed and affected by the prohibition of cannabis. So I'm going to be seeking out those candidates to give them employment specifically, because again, it has ruined people's lives. People have not been able to get jobs because of this. And I want to let them know that entertaining and elevating with cannabis, our lodging business is a safe space, and it's all-inclusive space.
I think that's wonderful. I'm so excited to learn more about your bud and breakfast and where it's going to be.
Thank you. Thank you. So right now we are just kind of looking for a specific location. I'm looking for something in transparency on the lake. I love Ontario Lake, even maybe the Finger Lakes. My father's family is from Canandaigua, so maybe even somewhere that way.
Oh, it's a beautiful area if you want to be on the water. There's plenty of choices.
Yes, that is. Yes, yes.
So one of the things that you touched on a little bit earlier was the equity potential that there is in cannabis to create social equity that we really haven't seen in other industries or kind of as a whole in general. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I feel that with the legalization of cannabis, other states have had the opportunity to create a equitable, inclusive environment for their community, but I don't think that they have, right? I feel like New York really has the opportunity. Monroe County, you and I, we have the opportunity to make sure that, again, and I know it sounds redundant, but the people that have been disproportionately affected by the prohibition of cannabis, they're at the forefront. They're at the forefront of the conversation. And not just by talking about equity and inclusion, but talking about opportunity, because I feel like opportunity is what is really needed in order to make it an equitable environment. And how do you create opportunity? You look at what resources that you have out there and how you yourself can be utilized as a tool. One of my favorite sayings is get used to being used or you will be useless, right? So we want to be used in a great way, So I feel like, for an equitable environment to happen, we have to make sure that we're creating moments where there's opportunity. And with our celebration from June the 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th, that is creating that opportunity so that businesses that want to enter or individuals that want to enter into the cannabis community, they are starting to see that they have a seat at the table and that it is an equitable environment for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I've been to a couple talks just about the cannabis industry in New York and Monroe County specifically. And it's good to hear that brought up time and time again, because it's so easy to lose focus on that like they have in other industries.
Yeah, I agree. But for me, and that's one of the things that I'm all about action, Jessica. And I tell my fiance that quite a bit. I really don't want to be included in equity and inclusion conversations whatsoever. I'm more so, what actionable items are we walking away from this meeting and this conversation that we can bring to the table or to our community? So actionable items on equity and inclusion, because I feel like if not, we're just spinning our wheels.
That's an important point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So now that we are on the cusp of legalization in New York, what do you see the future of the industry in this state as?
Yeah, so one of the things that I teach within my brand is that all cannabis is medicinal and it's used in a recreational way. So we need to change the stigmatisms and we need to change our thought about it as a whole, right? Once we change our thought about it as a whole, I think that the industry will start to change, because right now we still have that division, right? We still have that division where, again, some people have to talk about cannabis in the way of ailments. They have to speak about it in the way of ailments. So my fiance, who is also the other founder of our brand, Entertaining and Elevating Cannabis, Brandy Hester Harrell, she has lupus. And so she does consume cannabis to also combat with her lupus. But at the same time, we also consume cannabis in a recreational way, sometimes to help to relax us. And so again, I feel like the industry as a whole has to change and go back to, again, my first statement, which is that all cannabis is medicinal and sometimes used in a recreational way. So what do I mean by that, right? There's a time and a place for everything. So if I have a 9-to-5 job and I'm clocking into work, I'm not going to consume a heavy indica going to work and then while I'm at work, consume a heavy indica is there. Maybe I'm not able to consume in that way and then do my job. And so my point being is that, again, all cannabis is medicinal and used in a recreational way. It's a time and a place for everything. I think if we really have that conversation about the responsible consumption of cannabis and what that looks like, different strands that's available for a person at a specific time. Again, I feel like once the industry changes, I don't think we are going to see that change for a while. I feel like the medical field needs to still do research to then they'll come up to say, guess what, you guys, all cannabis is medicinal and sometimes used in a recreational way. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's an important point. Even if you are using it recreationally, you're still getting medicinal benefits from it. It's still lowering your stress. It's still changing the chemistry in your brain. Like it's still giving you something that you wouldn't have without it. Even if you're just like, let's get stoned and watch a movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, in starting this company and working in this industry, what is the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome?
Oh, that's a good one. The biggest challenge that I've had to overcome, I would say, in New York, everyone is a professional, right? And everyone, um, especially in the cannabis industry. And so it's more so about educating yourself and having a great understanding about the industry, about the politics of the industry, really, and also having a great understanding about the plant. So I don't think there's anything that I've had to overcome because I'm dealing with everyone in a professional way, and I appreciate everyone dealing with me in that way as well. And so when I say, everyone is a professional, I just feel like we are all trying to educate ourselves in the best way, trying to find, what information is out there to really help to to really I can't even think of it, to really help to bridge the gap for your knowledge base, right? There's something that you don't know, really just seeking out what information is readily available to you. So there really hasn't been anything that I have had to overcome. But like I said, I really feel like I'm all about energy, Jessica. I'm always trying to just ask that, God and my ancestors usher in the right people towards me. So I really have not had to overcome anything. I hope that that's not the case, but because I feel like I'm dealing with everyone in a professional way, and as are they to me. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a big amount of knowledge that you really have to work through when you're coming into this industry. There's a
There
lot to
is.
digest.
There's a lot to digest, especially with my brand. What we do is we also offer sophisticated infusions. And so myself, I'm the person that's doing the infusions and really being able to speak to, what I'm infusing and how I'm going through that process and, answering questions from my consumers and clients. So I would agree there's a plethora of information, and really being able to just educate yourself and having a thirst for knowledge about cannabis is really what has helped me as well.
Yeah. What's something that you are really proud of accomplishing?
Just honestly stepping out on faith and creating this business and this brand. As I said, my background is in business and in business management specifically, and I'm a very hard worker. If you ask any of my previous, bosses that I reported to, they'll tell you, Precious has a can-do attitude. She tries to go above and beyond to make things happen. And so I found that, I was working really hard for other people and developing their business and their brand. And so I'm so proud of myself that I've had the opportunity to step out on faith, believe in myself, my fiance also believing in me and believing in us. The synergy of the two, we really are amazing. Her being more of the cannabis advocate component of the brand, and me being more of the creative of the brand. I'm really proud that we were able to step out and to showcase our cannabis community. Our family and our friends, they were already aware of what it is that we do, but really stepping out and showing our cannabis community and really able to create those safe spaces that I talked about for our bud and breakfast.
So when somebody comes to one of your events, maybe a dinner that you're hosting, what kind of experience do you want them to take away from everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I always love to, I want someone to always walk away from any experience with me, whether that be at something that I'm hosting or the bud and breakfast, with a joyous feeling, right? I'm a person where I love to be of a resource. Again, that goes back to my father. I get this word used for my father, right? Get used to being used or you will be useless, right? But I want to be of a a resource and a used in a great way for someone. So I want them to walk away with feeling joyous. I want them to walk away with having feelings of, wow, when is this going to happen again? You know, you really exceeded my expectations, you know? And so that's always what I'm trying to do. I'm always just trying to bring someone in, meet what they need, and really exceed the expectations of what they thought that they were going to get. And so that's really what the Bud and Breakfasts will try to do, and we're going to do.
You sound like you were just born to host lavish parties.
Thank you. And not only lavish parties, Jessica, I love to cook. I really love to, when people come to my home, I'm always like, you know what, my space is your space. Kick your feet up, take your shoes off. You know, would you like something to eat? Would you love something to drink? That's just the person that I am. I grew up in that type of a family. As a matter of fact, the joke in the family was like, oh, you can go stay at Precious's house. She has a revolving door. And it's just, I've always felt that at any moment of time, if there's anyone that I needed, you know, thank God that I have not, but if there's anyone that I needed, that they would open their doors up to me the same way that I have tried to be inclusive again to everyone.
Mm-hmm. So you have some fun things coming up this year, but I know this is only the beginning for you. So
yes.
As you look towards like the next 12 months, what's next?
Yeah, great question. So we have quite a few experiences that we are curating. And so in May, we're curating a Moroccan Nights with our candy queen, LaCarrie, AKA the Bougie Stoner. So we're so excited about that. And so we are the curators for that experience. And then in June, we're also going to do, but on a larger scale, the Moroccan Lounge. And that's going to be at the Rock Candy Carnival. And so we're excited about that. That's going to be on June 18th. We also just did this past weekend, we did the PA Cannabis Carnival, and that was really amazing. And so almost every month we have something where we're curating a space for our cannabis community to really have the conversation, the synergy of cannabis and culture, and really just creating that safe space, introducing our Bud and Breakfasts, and networking, and really trying to do, you know, intentional collaborations. And so that's what we have going on for the next 12 months. I would say within 13 to 15, it's about 15 months, our larger location for our Bud and Breakfast in upstate New York will be opening up. And so that's really what the focus will be, more towards the end of the summer, the beginning of the fall. And we're so excited about that. That's going to give us an opportunity to look at the workforce that's out there within Monroe County. Hoping to place it in Monroe County, again, on Ontario Lake. So looking at the workforce that's out there and things of such.
Well, fingers crossed you're able to find a really nice location with a beautiful lake view.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What is your favorite way to consume cannabis?
Oh, wow. So I was introduced to cannabis by smoking. And I will say that I have consumed cannabis via edibles, because I do infusions myself. So I do infusions for like lobster tails, shrimp scampi. I'm doing things like spaghetti. I'm doing like Cornish hens. I smoked some Cornish hens the other day, and I did like some moon rock potatoes. And so while I do those things and I love the taste of my food and I love the infusions, I will honestly say, Jessica, my favorite way to consume in a responsible way would be by smoking. I love touching the flower. I love rolling the bud, and I love smelling the terpenes. I love that. I have a grand respect, as I have gained a grand respect in my understanding of the plant, and just by reading, and again, just dealing with constant professionals and them educating me. I have a grand respect for the flower. So I really love to consume by smoking in that way.
There is something also so beautiful about that, about smoking.
Yeah, also my favorite strand would be Durban Poison. Durban Poison, it is a landrace strand, and landrace means original seed. It's from the port of Africa, from Durban. And so it's a sativa and it's amazing. I call it the professional high. This is a strand that I can smoke morning, noon, and night and get a plethora of things done. And so that's also one of my favorite strands to infuse. And so a lot of times during my consultations with clients, I'm always asking those 3 or 4 questions, which is, are you a canny curious? Are you a novice, or are you a connoisseur, right? If they are a canny curious and a novice, then typically I'm going to infuse with Durban poison to kind of introduce them to a sativa and see how they feel from that.
Oh, we love a functional high.
A functional high. That's the best way, a functional high. Absolutely.
Yes, it is. So this has been wonderful. I have one more question for you, but before I get into that, is there anything you want to mention or talk about that I haven't asked you?
Well, no, there isn't anything. I mean, I think I just want to tell you, thank you so much. This is the first of many interviews for me.
Exciting.
Yes. I was nervous, but you did such a great job with making me feel so comfortable and at ease, able to answer all of the questions and stuff. And so I'm just extremely excited about our brand, Entertaining and Elevating with Cannabis. And essentially, I named it Entertaining and Elevating with Cannabis because I feel like all brands that has a business within cannabis, that's kind of what they're doing. They're entertaining and elevating with cannabis in some way, shape, or form. And so I'm excited to be we're excited to be the bridge to bridge the gap between just any business that's looking to get into business and businesses that are out there right now. If they're looking for collaborations, we would love to work with and for you. That's one of the things that we talk about, is working with and for our cannabis community. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to have our first interview.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so excited about what you guys are doing. I think it is amazing.
Thank you so much.
All right. So my last question for you today is, what is your favorite fact about cannabis?
My favorite fact about cannabis. And this is something that this is my favorite fact about cannabis that I think that the public is going to take a little while to get on, which is that all cannabis is medicinal and sometimes used in a recreational way.
There is certainly a disconnect in public opinion about that. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Absolutely. So definitely.
Well, wonderful, Precious. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You too.